Hello there and welcome back. In this video I will briefly introduce you with Stateflow. So Stateflow is a part of Kotlin Flow API that enables Flow to optimally emit state updates and emit values to multiple consumers. There are two different implementations, Stateflow, which is read-only, and mutable Stateflow. The biggest advantage of Stateflow is that it's always active and in memory, so it becomes eligible for garbage collection only when there are no other references to it from a garbage collection route. When a new consumer starts collecting from the flow, it receives the last state in the stream and any subsequent states. That's why there are some similarities between Stateflow and live data. However, Stateflow and live data do behave differently in some ways. So Stateflow requires an initial state to be passed in its constructor, while live data does not. And the live data observer method automatically unregisters the consumer when the view goes to the stopped state, where collecting from a Stateflow or any other flow does not. Unlike a regular flow, which represents a cold stream of data, Stateflow represents a hot stream of data. So now you might wondering what is the difference between cold and hot flows. Well, the main difference between those two is that Stateflow stays active in the background and it gets removed only when there are no other references to it from the garbage collection route, and that's why we call it hot, because it lives in the background as well. Okay, so that was just a short introduction to Stateflow. We're going to use Stateflow to listen for internet connection in our project. And if you want to read more information about Stateflow itself, I highly suggest you to read official documentation. Hello there and welcome back. So in this video we're going to create a new class for listening network connection, and the purpose of that class will be to notify us when we lose connection and when we get back our connection as well. So far our application is working perfectly fine, and even if we turn off the internet connection like that, and when we try to search for a new recipes, so let's search for a salad for example, so click apply, and as you can see we get this toast message saying no internet connection, and that toast message is actually located inside our request API data function. And as you can see, when network result is error, then we're going to load the data from cache and we're going to display a toast message. And of course, the actual message will be grabbed from our response. And we have already defined what messages we want to receive from our main view model. So let's open that up. And down below you can see that we have already defined what response we want to get from our network result error. So we have timeout, API key limited, recipes no found, and of course no internet connection. So when there is no internet connection and we click apply button on our bottom sheet, then we're going to get a simple toast message. But we also want to basically listen for our internet connection and get notified whenever we get or lose our internet connection. So for that we are going to create a new class, and that class should be located inside our util package. So let's create a new Kotlin class, and the name of this class should be network listener. So press enter, and this class should extend the connectivity manager dot network callback. Okay, and inside this class we're going to press Control O, so we can actually override two methods or two functions, and in this case we're going to override only two functions for now, so on available and on lost. So you can override few more functions from this connectivity manager network callback, but for now we only need those two. So let's select them and click OK. So the next thing, we need to create one variable here on the top. So private vol, and this name and the name of this variable should be is network available. Okay, and it will have the type of mutable state flow. So mutable state flow. Okay, so this one, Kotlin X coroutines.flow, and here we need to specify a default value. So default value will be false, but it doesn't even matter, so just add false. And here we have a warning from Android Studio saying that this declaration is experimental and its usage should be marked with Kotlin X coroutines experimental coroutines API. For now we need to add that annotation, so just press Alt plus Enter, and we can annotate our whole class with this experimental coroutines API annotation. So just choose this option. Okay, so this warning now will disappear. And down below we need to create one function, and the function name should be check network availability. So this function will have one parameter, and that is a context, and it should return a mutable state flow of type boolean. Okay, so basically this function will return either true or false. Okay, so here I'm going to create a new variable named connectivity manager. So I'm going to use a context from the parameter to actually get the system service. And here I need to use a context to get this connectivity service. Okay, and I'm going to cast that to connectivity manager. So down below I need to use this connectivity manager and its function named register default network callback. And here I need to pass this as a parameter. So this is actually referring to our whole class, and as you can see our class is already extending this connectivity manager network callback. So here we have a warning from Android Studio, and basically this function requires API level N and higher, and instead of adding this require API N annotation, I'm going to basically open up this Gradle build file, and I'm going to change this minimum SDK version to 24. So I'm going to sync the project. Okay, so let's close that for now, and as you can see that warning will disappear now. So that's perfect. And down below I need to create one variable named is connected. So its default value will be false. And after that I'm going to call this connectivity manager dot all networks, and I'm going to call for each. So basically here I'm going to check each network there is, and I'm going to check if we are online or not. So now I'm going to create a new variable named network capability, and I'm going to use a connectivity manager dot get network capabilities, and here I need to pass a network. So I can name this variable network, and I can pass that inside this parameter. So network, okay. And down below I can use this network capability. I'm going to use let, and here I'm going to say if it or if network capability dot has capability, and here I'm going to pass network capabilities dot net capability internet. So this one. So basically here we are checking if our device has internet connection, and if it has, then we want to set the value of our isConnected variable to true. And basically we want to return at for each loop. Okay, so we have a warning here telling us that our isConnected variable is a val, so we need to change that to var, so we can actually add a new value. Okay, and after all of this block, I'm going to use this isNetwork available to actually set a new data or new value. So I'm going to set its value to the value of this variable isConnected. Okay, and of course I'm going to return isNetwork available. So as you can see, this is a little bit bigger function, but in essence this function will check if our device has internet connection, and if it has, then we're going to assign basically true to our isNetwork available mutable state flow variable, and also we're going to return the value of our isNetwork available. So as you can see, first we are setting the value of our isNetwork available, and then we're returning it. And now there are two more things which we need to add, so basically 2 lines of code. And here inside our onAvailable function, I'm going to set the new value of our isNetwork available variable to true, and inside this second onLost, I'm going to set its value to false. So basically those two functions will trigger so one when network is available, and the one when network is lost. And when our network is available, I'm going to set the value of our isNetwork available function to true, and in other case I'm going to set it to false. So in the next video we're going to basically instantiate this network listener inside our recipes fragment, and we're going to listen for internet connection of our device and implement the logic accordingly. So for this video that will be all. We have created our network listener class, and we have also implemented our network callback, and those two functions. So those two functions will change the value of this mutable state flow whenever we get or lose the connection. And that will be all for this video. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have created our network listener class, and in this video we're going to basically initialize our network listener inside our recipes fragment, and we're going to observe or actually collect the data from our isNetwork available mutable state flow object. So let's open up our recipes fragment, and here I'm going to create a new variable, late init variable. So network listener, okay, and inside our onCreateView function, right here below our two functions, I'm going to create or initialize our network listener. So network listener, okay, and here we have a warning from Android Studio, so press Alt plus Enter, and here we also need to add this experimental coroutines API to our recipes fragment. So I'm going to annotate our whole fragment here. Okay, so as you can see now we have this annotation as well, and down below I'm going to call network listener, and it's check network availability function, and here we need to pass a context, so require context, okay, and if we check this function you will see that this function is returning a mutable state flow, which is actually a boolean value. So we want to collect that boolean value from our recipes fragment. Okay, so here I'm going to call a function named collect, so this one, and I'm going to name this variable status. Okay, and here for now I just want to log the actual status or the actual value, so log, and I'm going to name this network listener, and the value status, which is a boolean value, and we're going to convert that to string so we can actually display that inside our log. So here we also have a warning, and basically this collect is a suspend function, so we need to run this inside a coroutine. So I'm going to select all of that code and click Ctrl X to cut that, and I'm going to call a lifecycle scope, and I'm going to launch a Kotlin coroutine, and inside that I'm going to paste that. Okay, so basically now we're going to open up our application, and we're going to observe this log so we can check the actual status of our device. So inside the log cat I'm going to paste this network listener tag, and we're going to run our application. Okay, so as you can see, this log is called every time our onCreateView method is triggered, and as you can see it says that status of our network is false, so our network is actually disabled, so that's why we have received this value. And now when we try to enable our network, you will see that this network listener will be called once again. Okay, so as you can see we have received another log, and here it says true. So basically we are collecting the value of this check network availability function, and whenever we have a new value, then we're going to basically collect that inside our recipes fragment. And now let's try again, so let's disable our internet, and as you can see it says false, and when we enable that again it will say true. So that works perfectly fine. Okay, so you see true. So the next thing what I want to do, I want to create a new function inside our recipes view model. Okay, so I'm going to close that for now, and I'm going to open up our recipes view model, and here I'm going to create just one variable named network status, and its default value will be false. Okay, so at the end of this recipes view model, just below our apply queries function, we are going to create another function, and we're going to name that show network status. Okay, so here we're going to check if the value of our network status is false, so let's add this exclamation mark. Okay, so if it is false, then we want to display a simple toast message, so let's use get application here, and I'm going to write here for the message no internet connection. Okay, so now toast dot length short, and we're going to show that. Okay, so for now this function will have only one if block, and it will display a toast message only if our network status is false. And now we're going to get back to our recipes fragment. So now I'm going to call a recipes view model and its variable network status, and I'm going to set its value to the return value of our check network availability function. So status, okay, and down below I'm going to also call this method show network status, okay. So now let's run our application to see how will this work. So for now we have internet connection. Okay, so here nothing happens. And now when I disable the internet, you will see a toast message saying no internet connection. So if I enable the internet, nothing will happen, and we're going to handle that in the next video. So whenever we get our internet back, we want to display we are back online, and we're going to do that in the next video, but for now we're going to just stay with this one message. So whenever our internet is disabled, you will see that our toast message will appear automatically, and it works perfectly fine. So there is one more thing which I need to add here. So inside this on-click listener for our floating action button, I want to add the if block. So I want to say if recipes view model network status is true, and only if our network status is true, then we want to navigate to our bottom sheet. And in else block, I just want to show this recipes view model.show network status. Okay. So that means that whenever we try to navigate to our bottom sheet without the internet, we are not going to be able to. So let's run our application so you can see how will that work. So now by default our internet is disabled, and as you can see it is. So when we try to navigate to bottom sheet, we're going to receive this message saying no internet connection, and when we enable that internet, we are going to be able to navigate from our recipes fragment to our bottom sheet. So as you can see, now it works. So that's the logic which I wanted to implement in this application. So we don't want for our user to navigate to this bottom sheet unless we have internet connection, because we actually don't need to open this bottom sheet if we don't have internet connection. That's pretty much logical for me, but of course you can write your own way, and you can remove these lines of code which I have added inside this on-click listener, but for now I'm going to leave that as it is. And for now that would be all. So basically inside our recipes view model we have created this show network status, which will always display this toast message whenever we lose internet connection. And also we have created this network status variable which will be changed from our recipes fragment whenever we receive a new value from our network listener. So as you can see here, we're basically adding a new value to our network status variable every time we collect a new value. So for now that will be all, and in the next video we're going to implement a function to basically display toast message saying we are back online when we actually get our internet connection back. And that's it for now. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have implemented our network listener inside our recipes fragment, and this is how our application works so far. So basically our internet is now enabled, and when we disable it we should be able to get this message, but when we turn on our internet connection again, we are not going to receive any message, and in this video we want to work on that. So basically when we receive our internet connection back, we want to display here a simple toast message saying we are back online, for example. And for that case we're going to need to modify our data store repository. So let me go to data package, then data store repository, and here we need to add one more key, and that key will be for our back online variable. So you will see. Okay, so here I'm going to create a new variable named back online, and here I'm going to create a new key. The type of this key should be a boolean, and the name of this key should be back online. But since we have already created constants for those previous keys, we're going to do the same thing now. So let's open up our util package, then a constants class, and here down below I'm going to create a new constant named preferences back online. Okay, so here I'm going to write the key name, so preferences back online. I'm going to copy that name, and I'm going to paste that right here. So Alt plus Enter to import that. Okay, so now I need to create a function for basically saving this back online value. So just below our save meal and diet type, I'm going to add a new function here. So suspend function. So the name of this function should be save back online. Okay, and this function will have one parameter. so back online of a type boolean. And basically inside this function we're going to call our data store dot edit, so we can actually save the value. So let's name this preferences. Okay, and down below I'm going to call this preferences. Then I'm going to pass the actual key, so back online, and I'm going to store the value from our function parameters inside this key. So back online from the parameters. Okay, and that's all we need to write for our save back online function. And the next thing, we need to also provide a way for reading that value as well. So below our read meal and diet type, we're going to add a new variable. So let's create a new variable here. The name will be read back online. So the type will be a flow, so Kotlin X coroutines flow. And here I'm going to add the boolean. Okay, so we're going to use a data store dot data. Then of course we're going to use a catch block, so basically the same as we did in the previous example. So I'm going to just copy that here. Okay, and down below we need to use a map, so I'm going to name that preferences, and here I'm going to create a variable named back online, and I'm going to use preferences to get the key, so preferences keys dot back online. So here I'm going to basically return the value of this back online key, and if there is no any value, I'm going to add the default value of false. Okay, so use this else operator, and I'm going to just return this variable back online. So that's all we need to write here inside our data store repository. So here basically we have created another key for this back online, and then we have created this function named save back online to actually save that value from its parameters to our preference key. And of course we have added the variable here to actually read the data from our data store, and here we are returning this flow of boolean, and boolean value is basically the actual value which we have received from our data store. And if there is no any data, of course we are setting its default value to false. Okay, so now we can proceed, and we can open up our recipes view model. So here inside this view model I'm going to add a new variable here named back online, and its default value will be false. Okay, so the next thing here, I also need to create a function for saving that back online and for reading it as well. So first I'm going to create a new variable here named read back online. I'm going to use a data store repository to get that value, so read back online, and I'm going to convert this flow to live data. Okay, all right, so down below I need to create one function for saving that back online, so save back online. It will have only one parameter of a type boolean, so back online of a type boolean. Okay, and of course we're going to return a view model scope. So we're going to use dispatchers.io, and inside I'm going to call data store repository and save back online. And here I'm going to pass this back online from the parameters. Okay, so after that we're going to scroll down below, and we're going to modify our show network status function. So here inside this first if block I want to add one more line of code. So here I'm going to call this save back online function, and I'm going to pass to true. So basically when we lose our internet connection, we want to set the value of this back online to true, and I'm going to add also else if block. So else if network is true, so if network is available, and if our back online variable is true, so only then I'm going to display a new toast message here saying, for example, we are back online. And down below I'm going to also call this save back online function, but this time I'm going to set its value to false. Okay, all right, so basically this is how it's gonna work. So when we lose our internet connection, we're going to display a toast message saying no internet connection, and we're going to persist this back online value to true. And then when we get back this internet connection, this function will be called once more, and this time this second else if block will be called because the network status will be true, and if that back online is true, and it will be true because we have saved that already, then it will display a toast message saying we are back online, and it will set its value to its original value, which is actually false. And this is basically gonna work like an on and off switch. So there is one more thing which we need to add, and we're going to navigate back to our recipes fragment. So first before we add the observer here, I want to select this read database function call. I'm going to click Ctrl X and I'm going to place that right here inside our network listener. So basically, whenever our network changes, we're going to call this read database. And on the top here, I'm going to call a recipes view model. And I'm going to observe this value read back online. So observe here, pass view lifecycle owner. Okay. And basically inside this observer, I want to get the latest value from our data store. And I want to set that value to our back online variable inside our recipes view model. So let's call recipes view model dot back online, and I'm going to set its value to the latest value from our data store. So now I'm going to run this app again, and also I'm going to observe this network listener log. So I'm going to write here network listener, okay, and I'm going to run this app again so we can see if that's all gonna work. Okay, so now we have received this log and it says true, so that means that our network is actually enabled. So let's disable that, and you will see a message saying no internet connection, and now our log says false. And now let's enable our internet connection again, and you should be able to see a new toast message saying we are back online. And here it is. So we are back online, and of course we have received another log saying true. And we can even run our app again to check if it's gonna work again. So this time I'm going to disable internet first, and I'm going to run the app, and it will say no internet connection. So let's get back our internet connection, and now we are back online. So it works perfectly fine. And basically the way we are doing that, we are persisting this back online value using our data store. And basically every time we run our application, we are observing that read back online value, and we are storing its value to our back online variable from our recipes view model right here. And from there its value will change basically every time we run our application, and then we are using that variable inside our show network status. And as you can see, our show network status is called after this observer. So now from here our read database is called inside this network listener. And basically whenever our network changes, then this read database will be called. And basically that will be all for now. So we have implemented this back online function. So it will always display this we're back online message when we get back our internet. And as you already saw, it works like a charm. So that will be all for this video. And in the next video, we're going to start implementing our search here. So we're going to create a new menu for our recipes fragment here, and we're going to implement the logic to basically search our recipes by ourselves, by typing the actual words, and you will see. Hello there and welcome back. So with this video we're going to start implementing a menu for our recipes fragment, and here we should be able to see our search view. So let's start creating a new menu. So inside our resource directory and inside our menu folder, we need to create a new XML file. So the name of this file should be recipes menu. Okay, so press OK. So before we actually create one item here, I need to add a new icon. So inside our drawable directory, right click, then new vector asset. And here we're going to search for one new icon. So, okay, this one. And I'm going to rename that to just search, IC search. Okay, press next and finish. So now we're going to open this XML file and we're going to add a new item here. Okay, so the first attribute is the actual ID, and we're going to name this ID menu search. Then we're going to add the title, and the title should say just simple as search. We're going to press Alt plus Enter so we can extract this string into our strings XML. So click OK. Okay, so next one is icon. So let's specify the actual icon which we have already added in our drawable directory. So this one. Here let's add one attribute named show as action. We're going to set that to if room, and we need to change the icon color. So I'm going to add a tint here. So icon tint, and we're going to choose a white color. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we have a warning from Android Studio, and this attribute actually requires API level 26 and higher, and our current minimum is 24. So I'm going to ask Android Studio to use this tools target API attribute. Okay, so now we are going to remove that warning, and I'm going to add one more attribute named action view class, so this one. And here I'm going to specify our search view widget, so androidx.appcompat.widget.search view. Okay, so this one, and I'm going to reformat the code. All right, so now we have created our menu, and we need to add this same menu to our recipes fragment. So let's close all of that. So inside our recipes fragment, I need to add one line of code here. So set has options menu to true. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down below. So just below our setup recycler view, I'm going to override a method called onCreate options menu. So press Ctrl+O, and here search for onCreate options menu. So this one, click OK. And here the first thing, we need to inflate our menu. So we're going to use the inflator, then inflate, and here we need to pass the actual resource file, so r.menu.recipes menu. And as a second parameter, we need to pass a menu from the parameters of this function. So down below I need to create one variable named search, and I'm going to use this menu to find the actual item. And here I'm going to type r.id.menu search. So this one, that's the actual ID of our item. Then down below I'm going to create new variable named search view. And here I'm going to use this search to actually use this action view as search view. So this one, okay. And also down below I need to call this search view. And I'm going to call this is submit button enable, and I'm going to set its value to true. And also I'm going to call search view again, and I'm going to set on query text listener, so this one. And as you can see, this method accepts search view.onQuery text listener, and we need to pass that listener. So I'm going to pass this, okay. And we have a warning here, so we're going to remove that warning by just extending that same listener. So here our recipes fragment will extend fragment, and it will extend a search view.onQuery text listener, okay. Alright, so now we have a warning here, and let's use the Android Studio suggestion so we can implement those two methods. So select both of those, click OK. Alright, so I'm going to place them on the top, so it will be closer to our onCreate view. So I'm going to place those two functions down below our onCreate options menu. And for now I'm going to return true for both of those functions, but later we're going to modify them, and you will see when we come to that. So for now that will be all, and now let's run our application to see if this menu will appear on our recipes fragment. Okay, so now there it is. So we can see our item, and when we press that, as you can see, a new search view widget will appear on our action bar. And here basically we want to implement the logic to search our API for some new recipes. So for example, we can write here, and when we press enter, or when we actually search this, we're going to be able to receive a new recipes from our API that contains this actual word inside its title or description. And for that we need to create a new GET request, and we're going to continue working on that functionality in the next videos. So basically we have created our new menu resource file. We have called this set has options menu function, and this function will basically enable our menu item inside our recipes fragment. And also our recipes fragment is now extending this onQuery text listener, and we're going to populate those two functions later in this course. And we have also overridden this onCreate options menu, so we can actually create our menu item. So that's it for now. Hello there, and welcome back. So in this video we need to create one more GET request. So first let's open up our food recipes API interface here. Okay, so here you can see that we for now only have one GET request, And now it is time for us to create one more GET request, and in this case a new GET request will be for searching our API recipes. So before we actually start creating a new GET request, let me open up a web browser so we can check the documentation here. So open up this spoonacular.com and then go to docs, then full documentation. And here you will see that we're going to use the same endpoint, which is actually this one. And in this case, we're going to apply a new query named query. So as you can see, the description of this query parameters says that it uses a natural language to search recipes in our API. And this is the example of that GET request. So as you can see, we are using the same endpoint, but this time we have added this query parameter, and we have specified this query to cherry. So basically we are searching for a recipe which contains a cherry in its title or description, and everything else basically stays the same. So as you can see, the number of results we want to receive is 1. So we have received only one recipe, and as you can see, that same recipe contains the title named cherry, okay? And we have already specified our search query cherry. So basically that's how our GET request will look like for searching the recipes. And now let's get back to our Android Studio. And here let's create a new function, and the name of this function should be search recipes. So this function also will have one parameter of type queries or map. And I'm going to just copy this from above and paste that here. And the return type of this function should be a response of a food recipe as well. And now let's add a get annotation. So get. And here basically I'm going to type the same endpoint from our first GET request. Okay, so this one. And I'm going to just rename these queries to say search query. Okay, and that's how our second GET request will look like. So we are going to also use a query map to pass multiple queries inside our GET request. And when we actually start creating values for this GET request inside the recipes view model, you will see. But for now, that's it. So in the next video, we're going to modify our remote data source class. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have created a new GET request, and I have shown you the actual URL of our GET request. So and you already know that we will have a new query inside this request named query, where we're going to specify our search query. So in this video I want to modify our remote data source class. So let's open that up, and here we need to create another function. So the name of this function should be search recipes. Okay, and this function will have one parameter of type map. So search query of type map. So the key and value should be a type of a string. Okay, and the return type should be a response of a food recipe. Okay, so inside this function we're going to return food recipes API dot search recipes, and here we want to pass our search query from its parameters. Okay, so now we have created another function inside our remote data source, and in the next video we're going to modify our main view model class. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have modified our remote data source class, and we have added one more function for searching the recipes. And in this video we need to modify our main view model class so we can actually handle our search recipe response. So here inside we need to go to this retrofit section down below, and just below our first variable named recipes response we need to create another one, and the name of this variable should be searched recipes response, and the type of this variable should be mutable live data of a type network result of food recipe. Okay, so basically the same as in our example on the top. So we have just changed the name here, and down below we need to create one more function here. So search recipes, and the parameter of this function should be a search query of a type map of type string for key and value. And here we want to call a view model scope to launch a Kotlin coroutine. And here we need to create one new function. So search recipes safe call, and this function will have one parameter, and that is a search query of a type map. So let's add that search query here, and click Alt plus Enter on this function so we can create one. So create search recipe save call. Okay. Alright, so I can place this function below our get recipes save call. So down below here. Okay. So basically inside this function we're going to copy the same thing from above, and we're going to just modify a few things. So I'm going to copy everything from this function above named the get recipe save call and just paste that right here. So now I'm going to basically use a different variable. So I'm going to use this searched recipes response instead of this recipes response. So just to replace all of those. Okay, and here instead of get recipes we're going to choose search recipes, and here we want to pass our search query. Okay, so of course this function should have a suspend keyword. Okay, so that's fine. And from here we're going to remove this block of code because we are not going to cache our searched recipes. So I'm going to remove that, and also this one. And as you can see, we are reusing the same function named handle food recipes response, and we can use this function inside this search recipe save call as well, because the response will be our food recipe model class as well. So we can reuse this function 2 times, which is great. And basically that will be all for our main view model. So here on the top, as you can see, we have added a new variable named search recipes response of a type of mutable live data network result food recipe, and we have created a new function for actually searching those recipes, and this function will be used from our recipes fragment in some of the next videos. So for now that will be all. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have modified our main view model class, and here basically we have created one more mutable live data object for our searched recipes response, and one function for actually searching our recipes. And now it is time for us to get back to recipes fragment, and here we're going to create a new function where basically we're going to handle our API request for searched recipes. So down below let's scroll until we find this request API data, and just below this function we're going to create a new one. So private fun, and the name of this function should be search API data, and as a parameter we need to add a string. So I'm going to add a search query of a type string, and first inside this function we want to show shimmer effect. So whenever we call this function, shimmer effect will be shown. Then we're going to call our main view model and call its function recipes or search recipes. So this is the function which we have created in the previous video, and here we need to pass a map of queries. So we're going to create that map inside our recipes view model. So let's open up our recipes view model, and here as you can see we already have one function which returns a hash map of queries, and down below we need to create one more. So let's create a new function down below. So function named apply search query. Okay, so here we're going to have one parameter, and that is a search query of a type string, of course, and this function will return a hash map of a type string for a key and value. So let's create one hash map here. So queries of a type hash map, so string for key and value, and let's initialize one hash map here. So down below we need to specify each and every query. So the first query will be for searching our API data. So that query is named query, and we need to open up our constants class so we can create a new constant here. So here on the top I want to add a new constant named query search, and its value should be query, so lowercase letters. Okay, and that's the same query which we have seen in documentation for our Spoonacular API. And now let's copy this name so we can paste that here inside our queries. So Alt plus Enter, and that's the actual key of our query. And we're going to get the value from this query from our parameter function. So search query. Next we need to add the query number. So this one, and here we can also set default recipes number, which is actually a 50, but of course you can change that. So okay, so next one is query API key, and we can use API key constant, which we already have specified. Okay, so next one we have our add recipe information. So query add recipe information, this will be set to true, of course. And one more at the bottom, so query fill ingredients to true as well. Okay, and finally at the end we need to return this hash map. So here, as you can see, we don't need to specify any diet type or a meal type, because we are searching all our API database to find a specific recipe for the specified search query. And now we're going to use this function inside our recipes fragment, inside our parameter of this search recipes function, because this function requires a type of a map, and here we need to pass our function which we have just created, because this search recipe function requires map. And here let's use our recipes view model dot apply search query, and here we need to pass actual search query, so we're going to pass that from the parameters of this search API data function. And down below we need to call our main view model once again to actually observe this searched recipes response. So let's observe that. Here let's pass view lifecycle owner, and here I'm going to type response. So I'm going to type when response, and down below I'm going to type is network result dot success. Then we're going to hide the shimmer effect. We're going to create a variable named food recipe, and we're going to get the data from our response. And of course we're going to actually set the data to our recycler view. Okay, so m adapter dot set data, and I can just pass it. Okay, so I can just add the question mark, because this can be a nullable. So next, in the second case, if or when our response is network result dot error, then we need to handle that. And here we're going to hide the shimmer effect as well. Then we're going to load our data from cache, and of course we're going to display a toast message. So require context. The second one is the actual message, so we're going to get the message from our response like that. And for the length I'm going to choose short and just show that. Okay, and finally if our response is a network result loading, then we want to show shimmer effect. Okay, so this is how our function should look like. So basically it's very similar to our request API data function, and now we need to call this function inside our onQuery text submit. So we are not going to use this onQuery text changed, because this function will be called whenever we type a character inside our search widget. So for example, if we call our new search API data function inside this onQuery text changed, that means that we're going to request get data each time we enter a character here inside this search widget, which is actually bad for our performance. So we're not going to call our search API data function inside this one. Instead, we're going to call our function only inside our onQuery text submit function. So first I'm going to rename this parameter to query, so it can make more sense. So I'm going to say here if query is not null, then and only then I'm going to call this search API data, and I can pass the query, which is the actual search query. So basically this onQuery text submit will be called only when we press this search button, and every time we're going to check if our query is not null, and if it's not, then we're going to search for API data to our API. So now I think we can try and test it out. So now when we try to type here something, for example cherry, and when we press this button, as you can see, nothing happens. And the reason why, so after a little bit debugging this app, I found out that we made an error in our code. So let me show you. So let's scroll all the way up, and here we need to open our imports. So you can see that we have imported this Android widget.search view, and it's actually an error. So instead of using this import, we need to use another one. So the real import which we need for our app is android.appcompat.widget.searchView. So let's remove this one first, and now let's import the right one. So you can see we have multiple choices, so press Alt plus Enter, and you have two options. So this Android widget or Android X app compat widget. So you need to choose this one, okay? So this is very important, and I know that this might happen to you as well, and it might be very hard for you to actually debug this error, but now you know how to do it. So now we can run our app again, and everything will work fine. So let's check it out. So let's open our app again. Okay, so let's search here for cherry, for example, and press this button. So now you will see that the new data will appear here, okay? So we have received all the recipes there are in our Spoonacular API that contains this exact search query. So you can scroll down below to find all cherry recipes, and it works perfectly fine. So I need to point out that we are not going to cache this search recipe query, because we don't actually need that, and whenever you run this app again, then those cherry recipes will not be saved, and as you can see they are not cached, but that's totally fine. So now you saw how to search custom recipes by yourself, and this function works perfectly fine. So that will be all for this search functionality, and in some of the next videos we're going to start by creating another activity where we're going to show details about the selected recipe, and you will see about that. So that will be all for this video. Hello there, and welcome back. So in this video we're going to start and create a new activity named details activity, and we're going to also design a layout for our details activity as well. So this activity will hold 3 fragments, and we're going to add 3 tabs here. So we're going to have overview, ingredients, and instructions fragment as well. So basically we are requesting our data from API only from our recipes fragment, and we want to be able to send that result from our API to our details activity, okay? But this activity will not get any data from our API directly. Instead, it will receive that data from our recipes fragment. And this is how our overview fragment should look like. Then we can see how our ingredients fragment will look like. And for our instructions fragment, we're going to have a little bit different design than this one you can see here, and you will see when we come to that. But for now we're going to start and create a new activity. So let's open up our Android Studio, and inside our UI package we're going to create a new activity. Okay, so empty activity, and the name should be details activity. So click finish. Okay, so here it is. So the main thing which we're going to change inside this details activity is that we are not going to use action bar. Instead we're going to use a toolbar. So first I want to open a styles XML, and here I want to create a new style for our details activity. So let's add a new style element here, and the name should be details activity style, and the parent of this should be theme dot material components dot day night dot no action bar. Okay, so we are not going to use the action bar inside our details activity. Instead we're going to have a toolbar. So inside this style I'm going to just copy those 3 colors from our app theme, and I'm going to paste them here. Also I'm going to add one new item here. So I'm going to use a color control normal, and basically this will set the text color of our action bar, and I'm going to use color white. And also I need to set status bar color, and the color should be color / color primary dark. Okay, so for now our custom details activity style should look something like that. And now we're going to open up our Android manifest file, and here we need to specify that same style. So here I'm going to use a theme, and I'm going to specify here a style we have just created. So details activity style. Okay, so this one. And I'm going to also add a label here which will set the actual title of our details activity, and here I'm going to write something like details. So the next thing, I'm going to close this Android manifest file for now, and I'm going to open this activity details XML file. Okay, so here I'm going to add the ID on this root constraint layout to details layout. Okay, so inside I want to add the app bar layout. So I'm going to use com.google.android.material.appbar layout. So this one. Okay, So I will define width and height, of course. So height should be a wrap content, and width should be match parent. Next I'm going to add the ID, so the ID should be app bar. So now I need to constrain this app bar layout, so I'm going to constrain to left, right and top. Okay. So inside our app bar layout, I need to add a toolbar. So Android X app compat widget.toolbar. Okay. So the width should be match parent and height wrap content. So we are using toolbar because we have removed our action bar because we are using a theme with no action bar. And I'm going to add the ID here. So just simple as a toolbar. And of course, below our toolbar, I want to add a tab layout. So this one, com.google.android.material.tabs.tab layout. Here I'm going to set width to match parent and height to wrap content. I'm going to set layout scroll flags to scroll and enter always. And inside our layout, I'm going to add also a view pager. So the width should be match parent and the height should be for now 200 dp, and I'm going to constrain that view pager in a second. So now let me drag this view pager down below. So I'm going to constrain top constraint to our tab layout or our app bar, down below to apparent and left to right to apparent, and its height should be now 0, so match constraint. Okay. And of course I'm going to add the ID here, so view pager. Okay, I'm going to reformat the code a little bit. So now I want to create a custom style for our tab layout. So I'm going to open up styles XML, and here I'm going to create a new style. So the name should be custom tab layout style, and the parent of this should be tab layout. So widget design tab layout, this one. Okay, so here I'm going to add the first item of a background. And the color of this item should be basically a color primary, but I'm going to open up this colors XML and I'm going to define here a new color with a different name, and the name of this color should be action bar background color, and I'm going to choose color primary, so this one. So now from styles I want to get that color slash action bar background color. Next item I want to add here will be named tab indicator color, so this one, and for that color I'm going to choose color white. Next item will be tab indicator height, and for the height I'm going to specify 2 dp, and finally I'm going to add a new item named tab selected text color, and the color should be white as well. So now I'm going to specify this style inside this tab layout. So here I'm going to say style, and I'm going to write the style slash custom tab layout style. And now you can see that the tab has this color primary as a background, and that's the same as in our design here. So the toolbar and this tab layout should have the same background. And now I need to create one style, but this time for a text of this tab layout. So down below I'm going to create a new one, so style, and I'm going to write here custom tab text style, and the parent should be text appearance design.tab, so this one. And here I'm going to add a text color, so Android text color, and the text color should be color white. Okay, so this one. And now inside activity details I need to specify text tab text appearance, and here let's specify that custom tab text style. Okay, so now we have defined our two styles for tab layout, and you will see how will that look when we actually run our application. And for now that will be all. So now we have designed our activity details layout, and in the next video we're going to handle safe args. So basically from our recipes fragment we want to send the result from our API to this activity details, and from there we're going to send that same data to our three fragments which we're going to create later. So those three fragments will be overview, ingredients and instructions. So in this details activity we are not going to use retrofit library because we have only requested the data from our API once from our recipes fragment, and then we're going to basically send that data from our recipes fragment to our details activity, and we're going to do that in the next video. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have designed our details activity layout. So we have added the app bar, and inside we have a toolbar and a tab layout, and of course on the center we have a view pager. So this view pager will hold 3 different fragments: overview, ingredients, and instruction fragments, and we're going to create those 3 fragments in the next video. But for now we want to focus on safe args. So basically what we are trying to achieve, so whenever we select one of those items in our recycler view, we want to be able to navigate to our details activity, and from there we want to also pass the data from that selected recipe. So to do that we need to open up our navigation graph. So let's open that up. And here we need to add a new destination. So this time we need to select our activity details. Okay, so select that, and we can add it right here on the top. So we need to create a new argument here. So just press add, and the name of this argument should be result, and the type of this argument should be our result model class. But as you can see, we cannot specify that model class, so we need to do something before that. So let's close that for now, and let's open up our result model class. So here we need to annotate our class with parcelize annotation, and our result class also needs to extend from parcelable, so this one. And here you will see that we have a warning saying that this type is not directly supported by a parcelize, so we need to annotate this with a raw value annotation. So let's use this raw value annotation. So type raw value, okay. And now we're going to remove that warning, and we can close this result class for now. And here let's create a new argument, and the name of this argument should be result. And for the type we're going to select custom parcelable, so click here, and as you can see now we can see our result class right there. So just select that and click OK. And for the default value we're not going to type anything, so just click add. And now we have added one argument to our details activity. So when we open our XML file, you will see that our details activity has one new argument. Okay, so since we are here, I'm going to rename this label to say details. Okay, so now let me open this design here, and now from here I need to select this recipes fragment, and I need to connect that to this details activity. And here inside our recipes fragment we're going to have a new action saying action recipes fragment to details activity. So now we will be able to send the selected recipe data from our recipes fragment to details activity. So let's close this navigation graph for now, and for that we need to open our binding adapters. So select this recipes row binding, and here we need to create a new binding adapter which will basically react as an on-click listener for our row. So as you can see, when we open up our layout file named recipes row layout, you will see that this constraint layout has the ID of recipes row layout. So basically we want to add an on-click listener for this constraint layout. So whenever user clicks or selects one recipe, we want to basically open up a new details activity and send the data of that selected recipe to our new activity. So now let's close that, and here I'm going to create a new function. So function named on recipe click listener. So the first parameter here will be constraint layout, so recipe row layout of a type constraint layout, and the second one will be a result, so our result model class. So this one com.example.foodie.models. Okay, and from here I'm going to use this recipe row layout to set on-click listener, and inside I want to create a try block. So here I'm going to create a new variable named action, and from here we need to use recipes fragment directions. So if you don't see this class, then you should rebuild your project. So dot action recipes fragment to recipes bottom sheet. So as you can see, we cannot see our new action which we have created, and that's why we need to rebuild our project. So let's go to the build, then rebuild the project, and after our project is rebuilt, we should be able to see a new action which we have created inside our navigation graph. Okay, so we have an error here, so don't worry. So now when we click dot, as you can see, a new action will appear. So action recipes fragment to details activity, and here we need to pass a result. And I'm going to pass that result from the parameters, and down below I'm going to use this recipes row layout to find the nav controller, and from here I'm going to call and navigate, and I'm going to pass the action. And of course in catch block I'm going to just add the exception, and I'm going to just log the exception if there is one. So on a recipe click listener, and I'm going to say e.toString. So that's how our new binding adapter should look like, and I'm going to add two annotations here. So first one, binding adapter, and the attribute should be named the same, so on a recipe click listener, and the second one, JVM static. Okay, so now let's open up our recipes row layout, and here we are going to use this new binding adapter on our constraint layout. So here I'm going to use on recipe click listener, and from here I need to pass this result variable which has a type of result, okay, and that's the exact type which we have specified inside our binding adapter. So basically from now on, when we select one of those items from our recycler view, then we're going to store that inside our new action, and we're going to navigate from our recipes fragment to details activity. So now we can run our app and see if that's gonna work. Okay, so now when we try to click on one of those items, you will see that nothing will happen, and let's debug our app so we can see what this is all about. So here I'm going to add one more log. I'm going to type here on recipe click listener, and here I'm going to type just cold. So now I'm going to run the app and just open the log and just watch the log and see what will happen when we actually try to click. So when we click, you will see that we have received this, as you can see, runtime exception, so parcel unable to marshal value extended ingredient. Okay, so we forgot to do one more thing. So as you can see, this result class has been parcelized, but we also need to parcelize our extended ingredient class as well. So let's open that up, and here we need to add parcelize annotation, and our class should extend parcelable as well. Okay, and now I think that everything should work just fine. So let's run the app, and let's see if now we are going to be able to navigate from our recipes fragment to our details activity. So select one of those items, so for example this one, and as you can see, now we can see our details activity. So don't worry if you don't see here anything, we're going to fix that. Okay, so we're going to open our details activity, and here I just want to add a few lines of code. So here I want to set support action bar, and here I want to pass the toolbar, so from our activity details. Then I'm going to use a toolbar to set the title text color. So here I'm going to use a context comp.getColor, and here I'm going to pass this, and the second parameter will be the actual color, so color white, and I'm going to use a support action bar dot set display home up as enabled. I'm going to set it to true, and let's run the app again. So let's navigate to our details activity, and now we can see our actual title and of course the back button. Okay, so now once we are inside our details activity, when we click this back arrow, nothing will happen. So we need to fix that here as well. So I'm going to override the method named on options item selected, and here we need to write something like if item dot item ID is equal to android.r.id.home. Then we want to call a finish method. So basically this will close our details activity. So let's open our application and let's see how will that work. So click on one of those items, then when you press this back arrow, we are back at our recipes fragment. So that's how we are going to fix that, but in the future we might change that functionality as well. So that will be all for this video. Hello there and welcome back. So in this video we need to create a pager adapter for our view pager, but before we do that I need to create 3 more fragments. So we already talked about in the previous video, we are going to need 3 different fragments. The first one will be named overview, the second one ingredients, and the third one instructions. So inside our UI package, inside our fragments package, we need to create 3 new fragments. So let me click new, then fragment, then fragment blank. Here we're going to say the first one will be overview fragment. Click OK. So from here we're going to remove this automatically generated code, which we actually don't need. So we're going to just leave this onCreate method or onCreate view. Okay, we don't need that as well. Okay, I'm going to close that for now. Next one is another fragment, so fragment blank. The second one will be named ingredients fragment. Click finish. And here as well remove this unnecessary code. We don't need that at all. Okay, and this one. So let's close that. And finally, let's create the third one. So fragment blank. The third one will be named instructions. Okay, click finish. And here remove everything we don't need. Alright, let's close that for now. And we can also create different packages for those fragments. So this one will be named overview. Let's put this overview fragment inside. The second one is ingredients. Okay, let's refactor that right here. And the third one, instructions. Okay, let's refactor that. Okay, perfect. So next, inside our adapters package, we need to create a pager adapter. So the name of this class will be pager adapter. So here we're going to have 4 parameters. So the first one is a bundle object. So result bundle of a type of bundle. Okay, so this one. So we're going to use this bundle to actually pass the data from our details activity to our fragments. So the next one is a list of our fragments. So array list of fragment. Okay. The third one is a list of titles. So array list of string. And finally the last one is fragment manager. So this one. Okay, and now this class should extend the fragment pager adapter. And here we need to pass 2 parameters. The first one is actual fragment manager, and the second one we need to pass behavior. So I'm going to write here behavior resume only current fragment. So this one. And here it says that this indicates that only the current fragment will be in the resume state and all other fragments are kept at started. So here we have a warning and we need to implement some methods. So press that and we need to implement those 2. And also I'm going to implement one more method, which is optional. So press Ctrl O and search for get page title. So this one. Okay. Okay, so now I forgot to add a private vol on those fields here. So right here and here. Okay, so first inside our get count method. So here I need to return the number of fragments. So I'm going to type return fragments.size and it will return the number of 3 because there are 3 fragments which we are going to add there. You will see. Okay, so next inside this get item I need to write fragments and I'm going to pass a position here and I need to call dot argument or arguments and I need to set the arguments to this result bundle. So basically with this I'm going to pass all a result from our recipe to those fragments and I'm going to return here fragments and the actual position of fragment. Okay, and inside this get page title I want to return the exact title of those fragments. So I'm going to write here title position and I'm going to of course return that. Okay, so that will be all for our pager adapter and now we're going to initialize that inside our details activity. Okay, so I can close all of those fragments from here. Okay, and inside our details activity I need to basically create an array list of fragments. So fragments equal to array list of fragment. Okay, so down below I need to add each of our fragments which we have created, but I need to add them in a specific order. So first one will be overview, the second one will be ingredients, and the third one will be instructions. And we're going to do the same thing for our titles. So you will see. So for now let's add a new fragment here. The first one is overview fragment. Okay. The second one is ingredients fragment. Okay, and third one dot add is instructions. Okay, so this one. Okay, so the next thing we need to create array list of strings. So I'm going to name this variable named title or titles, and I'm going to use array list as well of a type string. Okay, and down below I need to call this and add those three titles for those three fragments. So the first one will be named overview, the second one will be named ingredients, and the third one will be named instructions. So before we actually initialize our pager adapter, I need to create a bundle object. But in order to create a bundle object, I need to get the values or the data from our safe args, which we have passed from our recipes fragment to our details activity. So on the top I need to add one variable, so private vol args by nav args. Okay, and here I need to pass details activity args. Okay, and down below I need to create a bundle object. So I'm going to name this bundle result bundle. Okay, so bundle, and down below I need to call this result bundle. So here I need to call a method named put parseable. And because our result variable from our args is a type of result, which is actually a parseable, that's how we are able to basically use this function to pass that variable. So for example, first we need to specify the key, and here I'm going to type recipe bundle, and the second one is the actual value. So I'm going to call args.result, and as you can see, this is a variable of a type result, and our result model class is actually a parseable. So that's how we are able to call this method put parseable. Okay, so now that we have created the list of our fragments, the list of our titles and our bundle, now we can initialize our pager adapter. So down below I'm going to create one variable named adapter, and we're going to initialize our pager adapter. Okay, so here we need to pass 4 different parameters. So the first one is the actual bundle. So I'm going to type here result bundle. The next one is a list of fragments. So fragments, and the third one is the actual titles. Okay, and of course we need to pass a fragment manager, so I'm going to use a support fragment manager. Okay, so as you can see, you need to be careful when you are creating these fragments and titles variables. So you need to follow that specific order. So the first one is a overview fragment, and the title here as well is the first one. Then we have ingredients, then instructions. So you need to follow up that order. And now that we have created our view pager adapter, then finally we can call our view pager from our activity details layout, and we can set the adapter. Okay, all right. And now we need to call our tab layout, but since we forgot to add the actual ID on our tab layout, let's do that now. So tab layout. Okay, and from our details activity now we can call that tab layout, and here we can set up with view pager, and here we can pass our view pager. So that will be all, and now I think that we can run our application, and we should be able to see those tabs inside our details activity. Okay, so let's select one of those items, and as you can see, now we have those 3 fragments inside our tab layout. So we can switch each one of those, and it works perfectly fine. In the next video we're going to start working on our first fragment, which is an overview fragment. So basically with our pager adapter we have specified how to pass our result data from our details activity to each one of those fragments, and you will see in the next videos when we actually start using those values from our result data. And for now that will be all. Hello there, and welcome back. So in this video we're going to design our overview fragment layout. So let's get started. Okay, so first we need to change the root layout element. So instead of a frame layout we're going to use a constraint layout. So let's add it here. Okay, so I'm going to remove this default text view, and first we need to add the one image view here. So let's add it, and I'm going to use this default background. Okay, so I'm going to connect left, right, and the top constraint, and those constraint or margins should be actually 0. Okay, so I'm going to change the ID of this image view to say main image view. I'm going to set its height to be 250 dp, and for the scale type I'm going to set center crop, and of course for the width I'm going to select 0 dp, so it can expand all the way in width. So after that I need to create one dark overlay. So as you can see inside our design, you can see this black overlay. So we're going to create something similar to this one. Okay, so inside our drawable directory, we're going to create a new drawable resource file, and we're going to name this gradient overlay. Press OK. So here we're going to add the shape as a root element, and we're going to add this shape attribute to rectangle. Okay, so inside here we want to add one gradient element. So for the angle we're going to choose a 90 degree. For the start color I'm going to select basically 80% of our black color. Okay, and end color should be actually transparent. So I'm going to add here end color, and I'm going to search for Android color transparent. Okay, so as you can see down below we're going to have 80% opacity of our black color, and here on the top we're going to have a transparent color. Okay, so let's reformat the code here and let's close the tag. Alright, so now we have created our gradient overlay, and here we need to add a new view. So type view, and we're going to add that view right there. So I'm going to set its height to be 100 dp. Okay, and I'm going to connect left, right, and top and bottom constraint, of course. So I'm going to constrain all of those constraints to actually this image view. So left and right. So instead of constraining those two end and start constraints to parent, I want to constrain them to this main image view as well. Okay, and I'm going to rename this view to, say, for example, gradient overlay. And I'm going to set a background here, and here I'm going to link our new drawable resource file, so gradient overlay. Okay, and now let's open this design. So from here, for the bias, we can set that bias down below. So okay, so as you can see, this constraint vertical bias should be 1.0, and that is actually on the bottom of our image view. Okay, so now we had that little gray or black overlay. And now on top of that we're going to add basically two text views and two image views. So as you can see in our design we have two image views and two text views here for likes, for number of likes and the number of minutes. So we're going to add those as well. So first let's add the text view here. I'm going to constrain this text view to the right and to the bottom of this overlay, or maybe an image view, we will see. So right and bottom constraint should be 12 for now. Okay, so let me just see. Okay, so here I'm going to write a default value of 100, for example. I'm going to set text color to white. I'm going to set text size to 16 sp, and I'm going to set text style to bold. Okay, so it should look something like that. And I'm going to change its ID to, say, time text view. Okay, so now I'm going to add one image view here on the top, and I'm going to select this IC clock. So click OK, and I'm going to constrain this on the left of our text and on the right of our text as well, and bottom constraint should be constrained to our text here as well. So now let me just go here and change some IDs. So here I'm going to change the ID to say, for example, time image view. Here we're going to add a tint to white color. Okay, so here we have a warning, and we should use app tint instead of Android tint. So let's replace that with app. Okay, so now it looks nice. Okay, so next thing we need to add one more text view here, and that text view will be for our number of likes. So here I'm going to set a constraint on the left, or sorry, on the right to be 12, and I'm going to constrain this bottom constraint to a bottom constraint of this text view as well. Okay, so now I can go here and change the ID to, say, likes text view. Here I can set the default value to 100, of course, and I can copy those three attributes from above. Okay, and now I can add one more image view here, and I can choose this heart icon. Okay, let me just constrain that right here, left, right to our text view. And here I have constrained this bottom to a top of our text view here. And I can change this tint color of our new image view. And I can change here the ID to say likes image view. Okay, so next down below we need to add a title. So as you can see, we have created this image view, this overlay, and those two as well. So now we need to create this title. So let's add a new text view down below. So here, okay, I'm going to constrain this to a parent on the left side and on the top to this image view. So top margin should be 20 and left margin should be 12. So of course those margins are not the same as in our project here, but I already said that I'm going to modify this design a little bit, so that's not a big issue. Okay, so now I need to constrain this on the right side here as well, and the right constraint should be 12 here, and on the left 12 as well. And I'm going to set the width to 0 dp. Okay, so let me scroll down below. I'm going to set here title text view. Here I can just type title, so it can represent a placeholder. Next I'm going to add the text size to be 22 sp. Then I'm going to choose a font, so I'm going to choose this Courgette font. So the text color should be black. Text style should be bold. Or text color can be dark gray instead of a black. Okay, so something like that. So next, as you can see in our design, we also need to add those texts which will represent basically our diet. So vegan, vegetarian, diet-free, gluten-free, healthy, and cheap. So this cheap is not actually a diet like this healthy as well, but those are just some values which we are going to fetch from our API as well. So for now we need to add one icon for this check mark. So let's just first add a new icon. So inside our drawable directory, let's go new, then a vector asset, and here let's search for a check. Okay, so we can choose this check circle. Okay, I can just rename this to check mark. I see check mark. Okay, click next and finish. And down below now we can start creating those. So let's add a new image view here. Let's select this check mark. Let's move that down below. So the left margin should be connected to a left margin of our title and the top margin to a bottom of our title. So top constraint or top margin should be 12. And I'm going to rename this image view to say vegetarian image view. So the actual color or tint should be dark gray. Okay, this one. So next let's add a text view here. Okay, I'm going to connect this left constraint here, top constraint here, and bottom constraint here. So the space between this image view and text view should be 8. Okay. So I'm going to rename this ID to say vegetarian text view. Here I'm going to write vegetarian. Okay. So the color can be text color to dark gray as well. Next we need to basically add a few more those image views and text views. So let's add a new image view down below, choose this checkmark icon. Okay, so the left constraint should be connected here. Top constraint here, so the top constraint or top margin should be 12. Okay, here let's add a new text view, then let's connect this text view here as well. Okay, so here margin 8, so let's change their IDs. So here we're going to write vegan image view. So here we're going to press shift plus F6 so we can refactor the name. And we can type here a vegan image view. Okay, press refactor. And this one can be renamed to something like vegan text view. Here I can type vegan. Okay, we can just copy those colors. So here I can use dark gray for the text color. And from here I can use this dark gray tint color. Okay. Next one, so let's see, so next we have gluten-free and the dairy-free. Okay, so let me just add a new image view here. Okay, so connect this left constraint to this text view and top and bottom here as well. So the left margin should be 24. Okay, and let's add the text view here as well. So connect that, and here, left margin 8. So let's rename those values here. So ID here should be named, so press Shift plus F6, and let's rename this to gluten-free image view. Press refactor, and here we're going to rename this to gluten-free text view, and here I'm going to write gluten-free. Okay, so here we can add one more underscore, and here let's refactor that again, so Shift plus F6, and let's add here one more underscore. All right, that's fine. Now let's set the text color here to this dark gray, and this tint to our image view as well. Okay, next let's add another image view. So here I'm going to connect this left constraint to left constraint of this one. Okay, and so top constraint here can be 12, like in our previous example here. So we have a 12 on the top. Okay, next let's add a text view here. Let's connect that those constraints. So top left and bottom. Here left margin to 8. Okay, let's change their values or IDs. So here press Shift plus F6, and let's rename this to diary free image view. Okay, refactor, and here diary free text view. Here we can write diary free, and we can also add those text colors, so dark gray text color, and here we can copy this tint color for our image view. Okay, and there are two more images or items here left. So now we have healthy and cheap, so let's add those as well. So here we need to search for this check mark. Okay, let's connect this constraint to this text view, and top and bottom as well. So left constraint or left margin should be 24. Next we have a text view right there, so left constraint here, top constraint here, bottom constraint here, left margin 8. Okay, let's change their IDs. So here Shift plus F6, and let's rename this to healthy image view. Click refactor, and here we can write healthy text view. Here let's write healthy, so we can copy the text color here and tint for our image view as well. Okay, and there is one more left. So for cheap, select this check mark. Okay, connect this left constraint to a top image view, and here as well. So here we're going to set 12, and of course a text view as well. So let's add that here. Connect those constraints. Okay, here we have 8, and now let's change their IDs. So here press Shift plus F6, and let's refactor this to cheap image view. And here cheap text view. Here let's write cheap, and of course we need to change their color. So text color for our text, and a tint for our image view. Okay, so now I can refactor this code and press Alt Control plus L. Okay, so this is how our layout looks for now. So the default color of those checkmark image view will be dark gray, and we're going to change their color to green when we actually receive true for those values from our API. You will see later in the next video. And there is one more thing left. So now we need to add this description. So for that I need to use a scroll view, because this text will be a little bit longer, so we need to scroll that. And I'm going to set the height here to 200 dp, so we can actually see that on the screen. Okay, so connect left and right to a parent. Top constraint can be connected here to this image view, and bottom to a parent. Okay, so now we can select 0 dp for the height, and for the left margin I can choose 12, right margin 12 as well, bottom margin should be 0, and the top one can be 12 as well. Okay, so inside this scroll view we have one linear layout, and inside that linear layout we need to add one text view. So here let's add one text view inside. Okay, I'm going to change the ID to say summary text view, and here I'm not going to change anything for now. Okay, so orientation for our linear layout is vertical, and here I can change the text size, okay, to 16 sp. Okay, so this is how our scroll view will look like. So it will have only one text view. That will be all for now. So now we have designed our overview fragment, and let me just add those names in my strings XML. So click here and press Alt plus Enter. So extract string resource, and then press OK. And we're going to do the same thing for our rest of those text views. So press here and press Alt plus Enter, then Enter, then Enter again. OK, then diary free, Alt plus Enter, Enter and Enter. Then gluten free, Alt plus Enter and Enter. And here as well, let's add those values to our strings XML. And here for the title, we are not going to extract that. We don't need actually that. So this is just an example. And okay, so for now, I think that will be all. And in the next video, we are going to basically populate those values with our API data. So let's first run our app so we can see. Okay, so we have an error here. So gluten-free is defined multiple times as our vegetarian and vegan. So we can remove those three. So we have already defined them inside our other layout. So we're going to remove that. And now let's run our app. Okay, so let's select one of those elements here. And as you can see, this is how our overview fragment will look like. Of course, we're going to populate those values or views in the next video, but for now we have just designed this fragment overview. So that will be all for this video. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have designed our fragment overview, and this is how our fragment will look like. So in this video now we want to display our selected recipe data inside this fragment overview. But before we do that, we want to recap once again what we actually did so far. So first let me open up this navigation graph. So as you can see, basically, let me just navigate back, okay? So basically, whenever we select one of those recipes from our recycler view, we are navigating to this details activity, and this details activity has one argument of a type result, which is actually our selected recipe, okay? So whenever we select a new recipe from here, we open details activity, and we also send the data of that selected recipe to our details activity. So after that, when we open this details activity, you will see that we are initializing our pager adapter, and inside this pager adapter we are passing our result bundle, and our result bundle is actually our result argument from our safe args, and basically we are bundling this selected recipe data to this bundle, and we are passing that bundle to our pager adapter, and from there our pager adapter is basically feeding that data to all our fragments. And now from our overview fragment we're going to get that data, and we're going to display that data inside our layout. Okay, so first what we're going to do, we're going to create a variable here named view, and we're going to return this exact variable. So return view. Okay, so we're going to need this view reference, and that's why we're creating that variable. So now we're going to create a new variable named args, and we're going to use this arguments variable, which will basically get the arguments from our bundle. So as you can see, the type of this arguments is actually a bundle, and this bundle holds our result of our recipe, okay? Alright, so next I'm going to create a new variable named my bundle, and here we're going to use our args dot get parseable, and here I need to write the same key which I have written inside our details activity. So as you can see, the bundle key here is a recipe bundle, and now from our overview fragment I need to use this same bundle, and I need to write the same key, so I can pass that same key right there. And also I need to add a question mark here. Okay, so the type of this variable should be result, and our result model class, so this one. Okay, so add a question mark here because this can be a nullable. So first thing we need to do, we need to load our URL image into our image view, so here. And let me just use this view object to get a reference of our main image view, and then I'm going to call this load function from our coil image loading library, and here I'm going to pass my bundle.image. Okay, and here I'm going to add this question mark. So next we need to use our view, and next we need to set the title. So title text view, but you need to choose the right one. So we have one from fragment overview and the other from a recipes row layout. So select this first one from fragment overview. Okay, then text, and here let's use my bundle.title. Okay, so let's add the question mark here. So next one is a number of likes. So we have likes text views from fragment overview. So set the text, and we're going to use my bundle here dot aggregate likes to string. Okay, so next one is number of minutes. So view dot time text view from fragment overview dot text. Let's use my bundle dot time or ready in minutes. Okay, and we're going to convert that to string. So next we have a description. So view dot let's say summary text view. Okay, let's use my bundle dot summary. Okay, so this one, and now we need to set the data to our those items: vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, healthy, and cheap. And now I'm going to show you how to do that. So basically we're going to check if our recipe has this vegetarian to true, this vegan to true, and so on. So if those values are true, then we're going to paint those into a green color. Okay, all right, so let me go to this overview fragment, and here I'm going to first check my bundle dot vegetarian. So if a vegetarian is true, we're going to call this view dot vegetarian image view dot set color filter. So here let's use a context compat dot get color. Here let's pass a context, and here let's pass color dot green. Okay, so here we are painting our image view to a green color if our vegetarian is true, and then we need to also use a vegetarian text view. So set text color here, and let's use a context compat dot get color, require context r dot color dot green. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for all our items. So I'm going to just copy this one and paste down below, and here I'm going to check for a vegan. Sorry, a vegan. Okay, and here I'm going to change the ID to vegan image view, and here to vegan text view. Okay, so I'm going to copy that one more time. So next we have gluten-free. So search here for gluten-free. So if gluten-free is true, then we're going to search for a gluten-free image view and change its color to green, and gluten-free text view color to green. Okay, next we have a dairy-free. Okay, so here dairy-free image view, and here dairy image dairy-free image or a text view. Okay, and at the end we have healthy and cheap. So if it's very healthy, then change that to healthy image view color and this healthy text view. And finally we have our cheap. So here cheap image view and a cheap text view. Okay, so now basically inside our fragment overview we are receiving those arguments from our pager adapter, and we are setting those values or that data to our views here. And of course inside those if blocks I'm going to check if those are true, and only if those are true then we are changing its image view and text view colors to green. So now you will see. So let's run our app so we can see how will that work. Okay, so for example let's select this one, so how to make the best detox and so on. So click that, and as you can see we have loaded that image. Here we can see the full title, and here we can see that almost every item here is colored in green. So that means that vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free and healthy are true for this specific recipe. But this recipe is not cheap. Okay, so it works very nice. And down below in our description we have one issue. So basically, as you can see, we can see those HTML tags like this B tag and so on. So we need to fix that, and as you can see when we get back to our recipes fragment we will see those HTML tags here as well. So in the next videos we're going to fix that issue, and for now that will be all. Hello there and welcome back. So in the previous video we have managed to display data in our overview fragment. So for example, when we select one of those recipes from our recycler view, we're going to get navigated to our details activity, and inside our overview fragment we're going to basically populate our views with that same data which we have passed from our recipe fragment to our details activity. So there is one problem, and as you can see here in this description, we can see some HTML tags, and we should remove them. And also those tags are available and visible here inside our recipes fragment, inside those items in a recycler view. So we're going to fix that, and for that we need to use a library named JSOAP. So as you can see, this is the actual link. So github.com/jhy/JSOAP, and JSOAP is a Java library for working with real-world HTML. It provides a very convenient API for fetching URLs and extracting and manipulating data using the best HTML5 DOM methods and CSS selectors. So we can use JSOAP to scrape and parse HTML from a URL, file or string. We can find and extract data using DOM traversal or CSS selectors, and some other features as well. So for our example, we need to use this library to parse HTML elements, or to actually remove them from our text. So for that I'm going to open up this recipes row binding, and here we need to create a new binding adapter which will basically use this JSOAP library and hide those HTML tags. So down below I'm going to create a new binding adapter. So I'm going to name that function parse HTML, and this function will have two parameters. The first one, the text view, because we're going to use this on a text view, and the second one is actual string of a description. Okay, so I'm going to add this question mark here because description can be nullable sometimes. Okay, so inside here I'm going to add the if block and say if description is not null, then we're going to create a new variable named description, or just a desc, short for description, and we're going to use a JSOAP. Okay, so this one dot parse, and here we need to add our description. Okay, and we need to call dot text. So now we need to set the text of our text view with this parsed text. So I'm going to say text view dot text, and I'm going to set that text to this parsed description. Okay, so basically with this line of code we have parsed our HTML tags, and we're going to use this variable to set the text to our description text view. And now let's just annotate this with a binding adapter annotation, and let's write here parse HTML, and let's also add JVM static. Okay, so now let's open up our layout, the recipes row layout, and on our description we need to use this new binding adapter. So let's find our description text view. Okay, here it is, and instead of this text we need to use a new binding adapter. So let's write here parse HTML, and here we need to parse result.summary, and basically that's our description. So here we are passing that description, and we are converting that or parsing that HTML, and then we are setting our text. So now we can run our app and see if this is gonna work. Okay, so now as you can see inside our description of our recipes we don't see any HTML tag, which is amazing, so it works. And now we need to do a similar thing inside our overview fragment to replace all those tags and basically hide them. So for that I'm going to close this recipes row binding and this recipes row layout, and here instead of using this line I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to write just my bundle.summary, and I'm going to use let, and inside I'm going to create a new variable named summary, and I'm going to use a JSOAP. So JSOAP.parse, and here I need to pass this actual string, so I'm going to type it, and it refers to a summary, and then dot text. Okay, and down below I need to call view dot summary text view dot text, and here I need to set that summary. Okay, so now let's run our app again, and everything should work perfectly fine now. Okay, so let's open up one of those recipes. And as you can see here, we no longer see any HTML tags. Okay, so now it works perfectly fine. And that will be all for this video.